Hello, sir. All right, everybody have a good spring break. At least didn't think about the school for a couple days at least. I know I did. 2 days actually, full days of no school whatsoever. So that was good. And that was weekday, not weekend, but weekday. So hope you had a good time refreshing a little bit. I know faculty needed it as well. You probably could imagine. So, but tonight we're going to be starting with version 3. We're going to be adding some more to your shopping list. We got a new fan in here, by the way. A new nice little box up here. It should hopefully be cool from here on out. It's like a furnace in here. Sylvia went out and bought the fan. I reimbursed her, so she found a real good deal at Menards. So thanks, Sylvia, for seeing her next time. But I did pay for it, but she went out and bought it for me. So, but it gets hot in here. Maybe it's just me. Anybody else get hot in here, or is it just me? Okay, thank you. So tonight we're going to be going over the version 3, and let me show you the end result of what we'll be doing here. Go to my go to course modules, all the way at the bottom, the assignment examples, week 9. You can click on that link there. This should bring up this page here. You notice from version 2.1 added a new cost field. So I'll go in here and add in like eggs, 1.25, add item. But add eggs, comma, dollar, added the comma in there and the dollar sign. Also, it has a new remove item button here to the right. So I'll add another one like bread. We'll say it's expensive this week, $5. We'll do milk, $3.25. Not too concerned with formatting right now, just functionality. So I've got in there one list with 3 items: eggs, bread, and milk. And then say I want to get rid of the bread, or say we'll be adding this to be adding feature to the cart. But right now, just to remove item. Removes the item one at a time until they're all gone. And so that's what we're going to do this week. And so next week we'll be adding the editing and we'll be updating the list is what we'll be adding next week. And I'll probably add in there, besides editing, maybe one more field in there possibly. I haven't decided yet. But for sure we'll be doing the editing piece. And we might even if I don't add one more field, we might actually do XML. Show you how you can read files. In fact, I know that's what we're going to do, because your reading for next week is dealing with HTTP, which allows you in JavaScript to read a file into the page. And so it's a perfect week to do the XML read. So you'll be able to read data from an XML file. So that'll be kind of cool. Because eventually the way this app's going to work at the end of this is, and I mentioned it to a few of you in here, is each one of you will have a folder for your app where an XML file will be created and updated that you can give to whomever, because it's just a list of groceries that doesn't really matter if anybody gets access to it or not. So it won't be out on a website anywhere. It'll just be a direct link that you'll have. But it's going to be an XML file that you'll be able to read to and write from. Read from and write to that XML file. And XML files are really universal as far as browsers go. And if you've ever played with them, they're kind of cool to play with because they kind of collapse and expand within just a regular browser. And so if you've not played with them, I think you'll have fun with XML. We're going to do that next week. But so this is what 3.0 is going to look like. Couple new features this week. The new field we're dealing with on your reading last week for this week was the events, JavaScript events. And the events deal with objects in JavaScript. And we're going to be playing with tonight and looking at objects as it pertains to, when you think of objects in JavaScript, you think of, I like to call them libraries. They're not really called that, but, or maybe dictionaries might be a better term, where you can take like we're using this for this app, shopping list, and create a library for shopping lists. And what's going to be in that library for this one so far is the name of the item and cost. And so it's kind of a default structure to use. An object property has a name and it has properties, singular or plural. You can have, we'll find out tonight. So let's jump to the week 9. I do have some notes we're going to look at, and then a W3 schools again, which I like doing that last time. We have 3 W3 schools exercises dealing with tonight's exercise. And we're going to be dealing with handling events. And I also have a link in here as a resource, which we will be using for our exercise in class from W3 schools. It's a really good resource on that. And handling events, this slideshow, do not click on because it's a wrong link. But we're just going to go over some. Stuff in our reading, stuff in the W3 schools. This link is wrong, so don't click on that. It's from last week, I believe. And so then for our in-class for 20 points, we'll go to this link, which is the same as your resource link. There's 3 exercises on it, which I'll help you with. We'll go through each one of the 3. You'll complete them, submit done. We'll go over the reading for next week. We'll go over step-by-step what's due and expected for version 3. I'll give you a couple challenges if you want, as I always do for the exercise, be above and beyond the requirements for version 3. So first of all, I want to look at the handling events from our online textbook on Eloquent JavaScript. It says you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. And so this is referring to how some programs work with direct user input, such as like mouse and keyboard interaction. You'd also have timing events, things like that. Event handlers deal with objects. We're going to create our own objects for our take home. But for the in-class, we're going to deal with event objects like mouse click, mouse down, mouse up, things like that. Those are popular. Key up, key down are events as well that your browser, you can utilize in JavaScript to do certain things. So for an example is you could do an event handler to when the user hits the enter key on the keyboard, it submits that form or goes to the next field so the user doesn't have to physically click on that next field to go there to type in the data. That's a good use for an event handler. But event handlers, it says here, imagine an interface where the only way to find out whether a key or keyboard is pressed is to read the current state of the key. To be able to react to key presses, you need to constantly read the key state and catch it before it's released again. It'd be dangerous to perform other time-sensitive computations since you might miss a key press. So this is how such input is handled on primitive machines, though. Step up from hardware, operating system, you notice a key press, you put it in a queue. A program then periodically checks the queue for new events. It reacts to what it finds there. Another example it says is, of course, there's need to remember look at the queue if you don't do it often. If you do it often, because anytime the key is pressed, the program notices the event, software will do something or it will become unresponsive. This response is called polling, and most programmers avoid it because the user doesn't know it's polling; it's just spinning, and so they can get lost in what's going on. There's no messages maybe for the user, so we kind of steer away from that. So the next example here says a better mechanism for underlying systems to give our code a chance to react to events as they occur. Browsers do this by allowing us to register functions as handlers for specific events. Just click this document to activate the handler. Here's the handler right here in between the script statement. Add event listener, click, function, left and right parentheses, and then between left and right bracket, a console.log pops up or it comes out that says you've clicked. So if I click in this script here and hit Control Enter, there it is. It gives a little console.log. It says click this document. and now it says you've clicked down there. And so again, to get this to function properly, I'll do mine again, refresh my web browser, come down here, Control Enter. It'll just say, click this document to activate the handler. It's getting that text, by the way, from right up here in the P tag. And then if you click on this P tag, the script is going to be fired because it's using a click event for this browser instance. And it could be if right now it's just a console.log, but it could be a pop-up box, whatever the case may be. So that's an example of an add event listener. So add event listener function registers its second argument to be called whenever the event described by its first argument. So in this example here, click is what it's firing upon, the click event, and in this case would be the mouse click. And function, that's just needed to fire the console.log. That's all it's needed. It's just an empty function. Function left right parentheses, left right bracket. This right here is actually the function. The second part of the argument. It's actually this right here. Second part of the argument. First part of the argument is click, which tells you the type of event. Second part that I've highlighted is what's going to happen when that event is fired. Yes. For the most part, yes, they are. And really, for the reason for that, like the word function is, as we've done up to this point, anytime you declare a function, make sure you caps or lowercase the f, because a misnomer a lot of times for programmers is when it caps it. But yes, you are correct that event handlers are almost all lowercase. Good question. Now, events and DOMs, we talked about DOMs 2 weeks ago. We're adding events to it this week. And one of the events that the DOM handles is the add event listener that we just looked at. And it says every DOM element has its own add event method, which allows you to listen specifically on that element. So notice here, before we look to the button and P tag, let's look at the actual script. Var button equals document.query selector button. Button.add event handler click. It's going to run a function that says button's been clicked. So I'm going to go ahead and do put my cursor there at the end of line 8. Do a Control Enter. It puts in there the click me button, which is right here on line 1. P tag says no event handler here. So if I click on the P tag, nothing happens like it did before. But if I click on the button, the console.log pops up and kicks out the button clicked event. Again, it does it on this var tag, and you could call this var whatever. It's just so happened to be called button, but it could be called B, var B, if you wanted it to be. So if I declared this as var B, and then b.event handler, left button in there, that needs to be left as is because it's using the button tag. So button needs to be left alone. Click event, lowercase, function, we'll leave that as is. Run it again. There we go. So if I misspell something, if I put like buttons here instead of button, run it again. Notice it said here, type error cannot read add event handler null, line 3. Kicks me right to it, which one it is, which is because it doesn't understand where button is, or buttons plural is. It doesn't exist. So there we go. Okay, so that's specifically using the DOM like we did last time we met, and adding to it now some events. Goes on, it talks about here about nodes, giving a node on an on-click. That's a popular one to use in Event Handler. It says giving a node an on-click attribute has a similar effect, but a node has only one on-click attribute. So you can register only one handler per node. The add event listener method allows you to add any number of handlers, so you can't accidentally replace a handler that you've already registered. The remove event handler listener or event listener method called with arguments is similar to add event listener. It just removes the handler. So in this example here, there's a button. It says act once button. In the script, var button equals document.query selection looks for button, which is this tag here in line 1. The function once kicks out a log called done, says done. And notice after that, it removes the click event handler by button.remove event listener. Click once. Once is referring to the function. Button.add event handler, click once. It should add that event now to that button click. So I'll go ahead and do a command, control enter. There's the act once button. If I do it again, it doesn't fire. It's only one time. Okay? Because we've removed it, it's no longer there. All right, now what happens if we did remove it? If we did remove this button, then we'd fire multiple times, see? And so if we put the remove listener back in, only once. Make sense? Yeah. This here, this line here? Yeah, it's using button right here throughout the entire function. So button is used here, right? Initially on line 3. It's added here on line 8 to use a click event only for that button. Query selector is looking throughout the entire document DOM for an ID or tag, generally an ID or a tag, either one, that has the word button in it. Yes, it is. It is similar. But this one's using specifically for built-in HTML tags, if that makes sense, by default. By default, that's what you generally use this when you're using an event for default tags like P. It could even be H1. It can be any tag you can think of. You can add a query selector to it. Yeah. Yeah, good question. You would have to do the ID. You could do the document query select. Like for instance, right now, if I change this button tag for anything but button, it's not going to recognize it as a button in HTML. And so what you'd have to do is call it something else. So an example would be here if I did, let's see, multiple buttons. Yeah, this is only one. And that's the downside to using the tags is you only have, and I think it had here in the reading, I can register, yeah, you can register only one handler per node. That's important to note. So in the node of a document DOM is the entire HTML page between body and body tag, if that makes sense. So yeah, so you are limited to that using the query selector. There are other ones we'll do in the future, but for this week, just note this is referring to just one-time use, or you can use it multiple times, but it's only going to register one button in this case. So going on with event objects, as far as event handler functions being passed beyond this, if we want to know which mouse button was pressed, we can look at the events property. So in a button, we're querying that button, a tag, adding an event handler for mouse down, and one for mouse down would be, the value 1 would be left button, value 2 would be middle button, value 3 would be right button. Now on our Mac buttons, it just depends on the type of Mac mouse you have. So I'll go ahead and play with mine real quick. You can play with yours too if you want to. See what it fires on. I know we have side buttons and the middle button, and that's really it with a Mac. So we'll see here what happens. It's going to be left button by default, any click. The middle little gray button is the middle button, the little gray ball. You press on the right side of the mouse on the Mac, it's the right button. Okay? So that's how I got all three to fire. So left click, middle, right click. All right. Going on with called propagation is event handlers register on nodes with children can also receive some events that happen to children. If a button inside a paragraph is clicked, event handlers on that paragraph could also receive a click event. But if both a paragraph and a button have a handler, the more specific handler, the one on the button gets to go first. So the event is to propagate outward from the node. So basically, if you have multiple P tags, you could technically have, or actually tables, you could technically have within that node for a table separate buttons and fire them separately in that table tag. That would be a good example. Let's see. Talks about stopping propagation, which we'll look at an example here in a second. At any point, event handler can call the stop propagation method on event object to prevent handlers further up from receiving the event. This will be useful for an example. You have a button inside another clickable element, and you don't want clicks on the button to activate outer element click behaviors. Following example registers mouse down. Handlers on both a button and a paragraph around it. When you click the right mouse button, the handler for the button calls stop propagation, which will prevent the handler on paragraph from running. When the button is clicked from another mouse button, both handlers run. So here we have in the DOM, a P tag encapsulated a button. So this would be a node in a P tag, and we have a button within that. In the script, we're declaring a variable called para, querying the P tag, button, querying the button, para.add event handler listener, mouse down for the paragraph, the P tag, and it should kick out a console log handler for paragraph. On the mouse down button for the mouse down, it's going to do a console log handler for button. If event is 3, which is a right click, it's going to stop propagation. So let's test this out. Any other click will bring it back. So here I'm going to click in the paragraph, handler for paragraph. Now I'm going to click the button. Handle for paragraph, handle for button, both, because if I click button, I'm both clicking the button and the P tag, because the button's encapsulated in the P tag. Now if I right click the button, notice it's just firing the handler for button only. If I right click, it's kind of hard to do that. Let's do it again. Yeah, it's not letting me click it all now. You got the propagation finally. I finally got the right click correct. So now you'll notice nothing's firing whatsoever now. Even though the button's clicking, there's nothing being propagated because the stop propagation occurred because the event handler right click happened, stop propagation. Had to do that a few times on the Mac mouse. I'm sure on the Windows mouse would be easier. Let me try that one more time. I'm going to try to do it right after our first. Okay, so there's one. I'm going to try to do right. And this is added to, let me make sure I'm clicking the right one. It's a mouse down for the button. 3. Yeah, that should be right click. This middle. I'm going to change this text here. Let's change this handler for right button. Okay, so I finally did stop the propagation then. All right, it took a few times on this Mac mouse. Yes, no longer propagating. So that's how you stop propagation. It goes on, talks about more outer nodes here. It says most event objects have a target property that refers to the node where they originated. You can use this property to ensure that you don't accidentally handle something that propagated up from a node you don't want to handle. It's also possible to use a target property to cast a wide net for specific types of events. One of the examples on this I thought about was when you submit a form. You know, sometimes you submit a form, especially if we're using DOMs in there. We're having some processing going on maybe behind the scenes. We don't want the user to be able to click again or submit again. That would be an example to remove propagation, what we just went over, or remove a handler, either one. That way they're not accidentally resubmitting that form again. Because I have known people on financial forms anyway, it tells you specifically, don't click the button again, otherwise you might be charged twice or charged 3 times or whatever. You might have seen that on forms you purchase stuff on. Especially I see that happen a lot on PayPal forms. But you could actually put in a website, even if you use PayPal, simple DOM registration to remove it. That should solve it from people accidentally clicking it. So that's what this is referring to, is if you don't want some things to accidentally happen or you want to target certain things. It goes on, it says, for example, you have a node containing a long list of buttons. It may be more convenient to register a single click event or click handler on the outer node and have it use a target property to figure out where the button was clicked, rather than register individual handlers on all the buttons. So 3 buttons, nothing special about the button, simple HTML button tags. In the script, though, we have a document.body add event handler, click function. If target.node name equals button, it's going to click that event. So we go in here and type it. So here's clicking event.target text content. Now, if I wanted to go further and I wanted to isolate, say, only C or something, what could I change up here to console log that I only click the C button? What could I change in this if statement easily to capture only, to kick out only console log for the C if it was clicked? Using the code that's already in there. So instead of event.target.node name, what could I use besides that? Event.target, we're definitely going to have to use. Right, so text content. If I click that, and in fact, I'm going to leave that alone there. And I'm just going to do, instead of node name, I'm going to do text content equals C, I think it should be. Let's see what happens there. Nothing for B, and C worked. So again, that would be good to use maybe for certain types of logic on forms. And again, nothing real difficult to do on that to make that occur. And so if you want to isolate certain buttons, you can do that. You can do multiple if statements to do certain things for certain buttons that were clicked too, by using the event.target.text content. So the different choices they choose could trigger other things to occur. So if A is clicked, maybe it goes to a certain website. B is clicked, it submits a form. If C is clicked, it shows a movie. I'm just giving examples of what could happen. So default actions in the DOM and with event handlers, there's a lot of default actions associated with events. You're all familiar with clicking a link, right? Be taken to a link's target. If you press down the down arrow, the browser will scroll down a page. Right click will give you a context menu. For most type of events, JavaScript handlers are called before the default behavior is performed, meaning JavaScript, if it's coded right, can override default events, and it should, so you can utilize it. So if the handler doesn't want the normal behavior to happen, typically because it's already taken care of in the handling event, it can call the prevent default method on an event object. This can be used to implement your own keyboard shortcuts, for an example, your own context menu shortcuts. It could also be used to obnoxiously interfere with the behavior that users expect, which you would never do that. But you might if there's a game or something, possibly, you might want to do that. I remember one JavaScript game I created once where everywhere you were supposed to catch the ball, and everywhere you moved your mouse, it had like 10 balls on the screen that was bouncing. And the JavaScript was made to where when it got really, it would randomly choose one ball out of the 10 that the user could click on. All the other 9 balls, as soon as the mouse got close to it and clicked on it, it would like dart off in different directions. It kind of like, scattering. And so that was kind of annoying, but it was a fun game. But you did get 1 out of 10, but the user didn't know what the 1 out of 10 was. And then it changed every time you hit the click, what that 1 was. Cannot be followed. We have a simple ahref tag to developer.mozilla.org. The script uses a selector for the A and a variable called link. It adds an event listener for a click for that link, which is normal. Then the function, though, says nope, and it calls the event.prevent default. Event.prevent, and it's getting the word event from this word here, okay? And you might be thinking already, could I name this anything else but event? Let's do it as it is first, and we'll try to play with it and answer your question, I guess. So let's go ahead and do a Control-Enter on that. There's my link. Won't let me do anything. Now let's just do E instead of event. Let's just do E.prevent. Same deal. So, I've seen E used, I've seen EX used. It really doesn't matter. E is a real common one, by the way, you'll see. Is generally the most common. E for event or the word event itself, either one. And so if I comment this prevent default out of that, it's connecting or trying now to connect to that website as I speak. It's trying to connect to that developer.mozilla, which I will stop or try to stop here. There we go. So it says try not to do such things unless you have a really good reason. Like that reason, I wouldn't really see a reason to do that particular example. But can you think of other reasons of where you would want to stop a default event from occurring and overriding it, having to do something else? Game was an example I gave earlier, but what's some other ones you can think of maybe where you want to override or prevent a default handler from occurring? Can you think of anything? Think of like forms. Think of games. That's a good one. It happens in games a lot, in gaming. An example in a game, say you wanted a function to fire. The right arrow key on your browser is always used for what? If I do a right arrow key on any, or let's say a down arrow key, let's be better. A down arrow key on any browser, what's the default event for a down arrow key on what browser? What happens to the page if I down arrow? Yeah, it goes down, it scrolls down. Say though, for whatever reason, I wanted the down arrow key and the space bar key to fire a function in JavaScript for new enemies to drop down from the sky. Let's just say that's what I want, right? Or new ammo or whatever the case may be. That would be an example of overriding the default event for down arrow key to default on a web page to down arrow to go down, scroll down to drop down a new object or fire an event, whatever I want to be. And so it's overriding default things like left, right, down arrow, space bar, enter key, to do whatever it is you want to with it. An example would be also if you wanted to override, let me see, I already mentioned the arrow key, the enter key, the shift key, tab key is another one I see override a lot. I'm trying to look at the keyboard here. Oh, shortcuts. Command C generally does what on anything? if you do a Command C or on Windows or Mac, it copies, right? You could override that. You could override the and that's a Windows system and a Mac system both default shortcut. You can override default shortcuts to whatever you want it to be. So when they click that Windows button, or on a Mac they click the Command button, or on a Windows Control button, when it triggers a control button, it automatically looks for some other key, and those other keys you can do certain things like fire up different menus. So maybe Control.G would be begin a game, Control.E would be pause, Control.P would be pause, I don't know, S for score menu, whatever. You know, you see what I'm saying. So you can override any of the default events that way. So as long as there's a reason for it, I see no reason why not to use it. You just wouldn't want to do it on a normal web page with a whole bunch of links and forms, and people click on links, they can't do anything. Probably would be a good idea. Key events. This is popular. When a key is pressed on the keyboard, your browser goes to the key down event. When it's released, key up event. So key down, key up. And if you've taken other programming languages, you've used this in other. But every key has an ASCII key code equivalent, all right? A numeric value equivalent to that key. So an example, key down for any key is 86. If key down code is 86, for the function key down, it's going to get violet. And key down 86 is the key ASCII key equivalent of key down. It's going to take the background of the screen or the document to violet. Key up would clear it, that background. So let's play with that here and see. So the page turns violet when you hold the Control V key. Hold the V key, I'm sorry, not the V. The event handler is on the V key. So it's looking for, the letter V, and it's actually the caps V is ASCII code 86. So if I did, I'm doing a Shift V key right now on the keyboard, and you'll see where that background is now changing to violet. And as I release the V key on my keyboard, it's going back to default background, which is white. All right? And you can change this background to whatever color you want it to be. Again, that's normal, default color palette. It could also be changed to hexadecimal color palette as well. But if I want to do like red, you can do that, test that out. Right? And so that might be important. For instance, if a user is supposed to put some text in a text box, they hit the, you have the key up event. I would actually reverse the logic. On the key up event, if they don't fill out some stuff in that text box, it puts a red background on that text box and refocuses on that text box. That'd probably be a good example. And you've seen that on forms maybe where it has you fill out your SSN, your address, city, state, zip. And if you forget one of them, it doesn't let you go to the next one. And it not only doesn't let you go, but it puts some type of color behind that text field, that input field, to let you know, kind of red flag, hey, you need to fill this out. We've all seen those before. So key events can help you do that. It says here, despite the name, key down fires only when the key is physically pushed and held there, okay? Pushed and held. Once you release that key, it's going to be a key up event, all right? So key down, key up. And again, the 86 referred to the caps V. If you want to do like, this is a number 1 here. Key code 49. And so depending upon what they click on, depending upon what that key does. So depending on what the ASCII key equivalent of that is. All right. You give some examples here. Pressing Control Space to continue. That's used a lot in gaming as well. So modifying things like Shift, Control, Alt, Meta, commands on a Mac, generate key events. So you can also find out, it says here, whether the keys are held down by looking at the shift key, control key, alt key, and meta key. So here's an example here of an event handler added to a key down event handler. It says if key code is equal to 32, and it's a control key. All right. So if I click on this one here, I've got the control key pressed. I'm going to try other keys here initially besides the space bar. Now I'm going to hit the space bar. Okay, so it's firing every time I hit the space bar now. And again, you would have to know the ASCII key code equivalent, which that's not real hard to find. In fact, I just did an ASCII key code thing to middle schoolers a couple weeks ago, where they made these little beads on their wrist. They took their first initial of their first name, first initial of their last name, found out their ASCII key code in the ASCII key code tables of each letter, and then we had certain colors for. Then they convert that ASCII key code to binary, and then the binary is either 1 or 0, and they had a black, I think it was, and red, and then the spacer in between was green. So they ended up having like 10 beads per letter. But let me show you what the ASCII key codes look like, or where you can find them at your keyboards. Wikipedia's got a halfway decent one. It's not the greatest. I'll find a better one. I've got one linked on the site I did, but this might be good. There we go. So let's see. Let's do the cap C, which cap C is 12. So I would say for, we were talking about earlier the control C being popular. So the decimal version of C is 12. That's the ASCII. And then it has in here hexadecimal as well. It'll give you. But I'm just interested. The one we've already done, I think, was it V? Is that right? I think we did a V. Let's go to this here. This took forever. Numbers, no. Hexadecimal, no, I don't want that. Didn't like that website. Okay, we did V, which was 86. So let me see. C is 67, and that's the year I was born. 67, did not know that. So C67. So let's go back to the reading. We'll make this 67. There. I'll put in control C, so control space. There we go. And so again, on the ASCII key code, you just need to find any good website. This one's ascii.cl. It was a good one, seems like. So you get how it works. Again, this is referring to the letter C. This is referring to the control key. And there's other keys as well. You can play with shift key, alt key, meta key, either one. All right. Next one here talks about doing the focusing here on the string.from char code function to turn this code into an actual single character string. So it says here, add event handler function on this one's on the key press. Console.long is going to take the string, which is built in JavaScript, from char code, event.char code. So if I take and just do a control enter and type something, and what I'm doing actually is just hitting the key on the keyboard, and it's actually displaying in a console.log while I'm typing in on the keyboard. That's all it's doing. And it's doing it from, it's any event, any key press that I press, any key on my keyboard that I press. If I do an @ symbol, it's going to do that. Exclamation point, it's going to do that, so on and so forth. So this would be good if you're capturing keyboard input to confirm that maybe something is a numeric value only. It has to be numeric only. You could capture each input with an event handler to determine that. Okay, one more mouse clicks. We'll cover that. Mouse clicks by pressing mouse down, mouse up. We've done the key down, key up. We've done left, middle, right mouse. Now let's focus on click event of your mouse. So you got basically the click event, single click, double click, those two events. Mouse up, mouse down, key up, key down, or similar to key up, key down. So the following implements a primitive drawing diagram. Every time you click the document, it adds a dot under your mouse pointer. And so let's look at it before we actually do it. Body tag, 200 pixels, background beige, dot, dot, and we're going to be playing with this actually in our take-home, which is a function. It's actually an object, JavaScript object called dot, and it has height, width, border radius, background, and position. And I know it has those properties because each property is separated by a semicolon. And so you got the name and the value. Name, semicolon, or colon, I'm sorry. Name, colon, value, semicolon is one area only. So that's a style. Body, height 200 pixels, background beige, gives us some values and properties for dot, dot. So here's an event handler. This would be a custom event handler. Add event listener to click anytime a click event happens. It's not really tying it to anything, so really anytime you click anywhere on the screen, it's going to occur. And var dot equals document.create div. It's going to create a div tag. And dot dot class name dot dot style left event dot page x -4 plus pixel. This is basically going to give you different pixels for left and X and Y coordinates for left and top, and then finally append it to the page. So let's see what happens. So here's our, what is it, 200 pixel beige background. And it's just basically putting dots on the page, all with JavaScript. Pretty cool, right? And again, this will be used somewhat. You could build upon this to add in iterations of your own dots, maybe a starry sky, blinkly sky, a whole bunch of cool things, all with event handlers. And as you can probably tell, this can be brought to the next level, more advanced, definitely on gaming, to where you can, if you can capture XY coordinates, you can also capture object collision, object creation, things like that. Mouse motion. Every time the mouse moves, if you look at your mouse on the desk there, every time you move it around, it's going XY coordinates. And so this one here is an example program, displays a bar and sets up event handlers so that dragging to the left or right on this bar makes it narrower or wider. All right. Div style on this one, background orange, width 60, height 200 pixel, so a very small bar. Has two variables. The first one tracks the last observed mouse X location, and then the X location is from left to right. location of your mouse left to right. Y location would be top down. Var rect is the div tag. It's selecting that in the query selector. Adding an event handler to that div tag. And if event dot which is equal to 1, so last x equals event dot page x, mouse move, and prevent selection. So if it's exactly where it was before, not going to do anything. Button press on this one. If event dot buttons equals null, it's going to return not equal to null. Else, it's going to return events not equal to null. And then moved, function moved event. If button is pressed, remove listener for mouse move. Else, it's going to give a distance of the last click event to where you're at on the page. Add a new width by using a math.max times 10 of where you're located at, XY coordinates. Declare a new width for that and update the page. So let's see here. And this is only going to be in a horizontal fashion, not vertical. If I go up or down, it doesn't do anything. It's only going to be in a horizontal fashion. This works. Okay. And let's see here. And again, the event handler here is adding the event move, and the button pressed event on this one here. Let's see here. Yeah, if the button is moved, it's going to determine if it's left or right, X, Y, X coordinates, and update the width accordingly. The mouse window is the whole window. Even if the mouse goes outside the bar during resizing, we still want to update the sizing and dragging when it's released. It only gets it within that div tag. All right. Yeah, that's it. A whole bunch of other ones. Hopefully you've had time to read that. If not, definitely good reading, good examples. Timers, goes over timers. Now we're going to go back to week 9 discussion and click on the number 4 in class lab 20 points. This is the W3 schools on events and really good examples here on event, HTML events. And so this one here gives some events that we didn't go over. That's why I chose it. So an event would be on HTML, a web page finished loading, input fields changed, button was clicked, we did the button click. And so JavaScript lets you execute code when events are detected. We went over that. Allows event handlers to and attributes. Went over that. So an example here is an on-click attribute with code is added to the button click. So click on the try it yourself and click the run and then click the time is, and it should give today's date and time, including well, whatever the server's at. This case is 500 or yeah, this is general mountain time. Which, let's see, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Yeah, I guess that is right. 12, 15, 27 would be 527. 17, 27, 527. So somebody asked earlier, can you fire on other things? Notice this one is using the get element by ID to do it, what we're wanting to do. So it's firing on click versus using a tag. It's using an on click document get element by ID demo. And it's actually going to plug it into that demo ID, which is a P tag, on the output. So JavaScript and everything is all in here, all on this on click right here. Document.getElement ID demo.enter HTML date. It's going to plug it into the P tag. All right, let's go back. So in the next example, the code changes the contents of its own element using the this.enter HTML. Let's click on that. Click run. This is enter HTML date. And notice it took over the button, replaced everything in that HTML DOM with the today's date and time. All right. And it did become a button, but now it literally replaced everything in that page. Next one, go back to our JavaScript code. This one here displays date. So it's on a button click, an on-click event for a button, display date. In the JavaScript, it's going to display in the demo ID, PID tag, the date and time. All right, pretty simple there. And then the rest of these, definitely worth your time to go over the different common HTML events. We went over most of these tonight already. What can JavaScript do? Event handlers can be used to handle and verify user input, user actions, browser actions. So things that should be done in every time a page loads, things that should be done when the page is closed, actions that should be performed when a user clicks a button, content that should be verified when the user enters input. Exercises. Let's go over the first one together. So the P elements should do something when someone clicks on it. Try to fix it. Clue on this one, there is a hint button to help you if you need help. So again, when somebody clicks on it is a keyword that you want something to happen. If you need to look at prior examples, you can do that. Or if you want to click on the hint button in a little bit, you can do that too. I would attempt to not click on the hint button first, so if you can figure out where to put it. You can look at one of the other examples we did to see, okay, how did we do the click event on the other ones? And use that as an example. So this one is going to be the on-click event. Somebody clicks on the P tag. Give you a moment to do that. And again, if you look at some other examples above that, exercise in the page before, it'll help you, or any of the examples before will help you as well on how to capture the on-click event. Because remember, on-click events can be captured by any tag. We're using this example of P tag. It could be any tag. Give you another moment to play with that and see if you can get that to function. Once you change the code on the left side of the screen, you will need to click on the see result and then test it to see if it works. There's also a show answer one if you really stuck, but you shouldn't, hopefully. We'll go over this together. Okay, we're ready? You guys ready? All right. So it should be on that one, P on click equals, and then everything else is the same. So whatever was there before should replace with the word on click. And when we do that, we're firing it on the on click. So if I click see results, click that, now it changes to good job. All right, so that's the on click. Next exercise, if you go back to the original page there, exercise 2, when the button is clicked, trigger my function with an event. Now my function's already there, button's already there. You just need to add in the clicked event for my button. Again, hints there, other examples we've looked at already, you can look at those. Try to look at other examples before you click on hint or show answer, and then we'll do that one together in just a second. All right, another moment, and then we'll do it together. Just need to put an on-click event in the button tag there to where it fires a my function. And that's all you need to do is add, and don't change anything in my function, just put the on-click event in the button where it calls my function. Okay, so let's look here. As it stands now, if I run this, nothing happens. But if I come over here and put in the on-click equals my function in quotes and make sure and put the left and right parentheses to call the my function in your JavaScript, click see result, and there we go. All right. So again, my on-click equals, and then whatever you want to call in your function in JavaScript. Last one, exercise 3. The span element should be done, should do something when someone moves a mouse over it. Try to fix it. And again, mouse over is the key word there. Mouse over. So take a stab at that one. A lot of these events are pretty, you don't really have to memorize a lot of them because it pretty much are the words shoved together is generally going to be the event name that you need to use. So again, this is mouse hover, mouse over. Give it another moment on that one. Okay, here we go. So this is how it stands right now. We see result doesn't really do anything. And I threw one in here just for fun. Say you want to do one for when it's over and out. So when you go over it and we go away from it, which is the mouse out. The one for the answer one was just for the one you needed to put in there was for the on mouse over, which turns it to red only. So let's say you wanted to put in there blue or mouse out. So out turns blue, goes away from it, turns blue, comes back, turns red. So over and out. So over red, out blue, over red, out blue. Okay. And that's just, you can put that all within the span tag, all within the beginning span tag, right next to each other. And so, again, that way you can hover over and highlight some item or something on a page. And so that's over and out on that one. All right, then go back to week 9 discussion. Submit that you've done that.
Can't.
You can't? Okay, I will fix it so you can. Right now. Just put done, it's fine. Now refresh the page and do it. Let me know if you can do that.
Yep, there we go.
All right. So while you're submitting done there, reading for next week is HTTP. And let me give you a preview of HTTP, what's going to be going over next week. We're going to be doing this in our in class. HTTP stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. The dream behind the web is common information space in which we communicate by sharing information. Its universality is essential. The fact that hypertext link can point to anything, be it personal, local, global, be it draft or highly polished. Tim Berners-Lee, The World Wide Web, a very short personal history. So Hypertext Transfer Protocol in chapter 12 goes over a whole bunch of cool stuff you can do with Hypertext Transfer Protocol. One of the things we'll be playing with as you do the reading for next week is you'll get to the section of reading where it shows you how to open up text in a web page that the JavaScript is in, the web server, the JavaScript is in, and load it into a browser. Okay? And so you'll learn how that works. And that's all with XML HTTP request. And we'll actually be using that for your final version of your shopping list. Specifically, this piece here, text document, also be showing you at the end of the semester. By the way, this is a formatting of what XML looks like right here. Notice name, color, 3 instances of it. But it not only can read a TXT file, you'll also be able to, when you do your reading next week, see how you can also read an XML file as well. Okay, like this one here, it's reading this XML file that's in the browser, that's in the web page here, in the web server, and it's looking for the length of that, which in this case is 3 because it has 3 records. Okay, so you'll learn all about that. All right, so let's go over week 9 assignment. We'll be done. So you're going to view and complete version 3.0 of your app. Allow editing and deleting. Actually, this one's going to be editing, and you're also going to be deleting, adding and deleting really items to your shopping list. And then once you're done, you'll submit, as always, your link below, which I do have a website link URL there for you, 50 points. So let me go over that real quick, and then we'll be done. This is due Sunday, as always, at midnight. So for this version 3.0, to stay on track, it should have an input field for name and cost. Name we already have, cost we didn't. It should have an object property for my list for name and cost. It should add function shopping list should add the function shopping list using the object properties to web page using the DOM. It should display remove button with logic to remove item. It should clear input box for name, which we did last time, version 2.1. New one we've added for this one is cost. And it should focus on the input box name after the text is cleared. Edit and fork it, as always. Convert it to 3.0. Update your H1 to shopping list 3.0. Add in your new input. And by the way, I did add in this one a couple, just for aesthetic purposes, here. Blow this up a little bit. So these are basically non-space, just space tags, which basically just having the space bar on your keyboard in HTML. All right. And that's just for aesthetics to make it look better. And then also updating from what 2.1 on the on-click event, it's bringing in two values. For item.value, what we had version 2.1, comma, cost.value as well. So you have two input texts that you're bringing in. So after you've done that, you should have required method requirements for input field name and cost. Then at the top of the JS, adding an object for shopping list called My Items with two placeholders, name and price. And this is how you declare an empty object, or I call library or dictionary. So this would be the item, My Items, with two properties, name and price. Notice as the name of the property, colon, empty quotes, comma, another property, colon, empty quotes, right bracket, semicolon. So that's the entire object called My Items. That completes that one for the object property My List, name and cost. Then updating the existing add to shopping list. There's a whole bunch of version 3.0s I put in here to help you line by line with comments on what you should do as far as your updated version 3.0. You're going to be adding in one more item in the function. Item was already in there. Cost is now being added. Declaring a variable called gross for the string. Account. MyItems.name equals item. That's coming from the DOM. MyItems.price equals cost from the DOM. And then a for loop. This for loop is going to go through both items, 0 and 1. If it's count as 1, meaning it would be the second item, which would be cost, it's going to add a $sign in front of the number. That's the price field. Here it's going to increment or concatenate the GROC variable with the name on the first iteration, cost on the second iteration. If count is 0, it's going to put a comma in between the two, or add a comma to it. Then after the for loop is finished, meaning 0, 1 is finished, going to push it to the shopping list, the GROC, which is that text that was added to. Then call the display shopping list. This is as it was in version 2.1, except for the GROC is changed. Then clear focus, that was in 2.1. So I finished the shopping list function of adding to the shopping list using the object properties from the DOM. To display, there's a few version changes in version 3. I left in there the versions 2.1. You should already have those in your code for last week. Version 3 is new. So here's a new one on version 3 for the display shopping list. All this variable is doing, by the way, is putting the delete button after each one of the items. And it's using the index of that row. Because say you have 10 items, you're going to have 0 to 9 on the delete shopping list, 0 to 9 on the array. So I put this in the display shopping list versus the add to shopping list because the display shopping list is going to change every time you delete an item. The array is going to change, array index. And the for loop on this one, a real simple for loop, declaring I is 0 while I is less than the array length, and then increment 1 by 1 each loop, each for loop. So each for loop will add a remove button to the end of the item, which we'll look at that in just a second, the final example. The list equals a list plus shopping list, whatever the array it is. So array 0, array 1, array 2, whichever one that they're on, is going to keep adding to that HTML, the list. The button, then a BR tag. The BR tag, if you don't put that in there, won't wrap it to the next line, as in version 2.1. It's going to plug it in the same place in the DOM called MyList, the ID MyList, as version 2.1 did. Nothing changed there. So that completes the adding the function and displaying the remove button logic. Okay, that was in there from version 2.1. Satisfied that one. On the clear focus text, version 3.0, excuse me, you are adding the element or clearing out the element for cost on the HTML form, because that's been new. That's new. Everything else is the same. I left everything else in there as it was for version 2.1. And then that finally completes it all. So let me show you lastly, again, before we're done here, the plunker for that. So this is what it looks like, or what it should look like when you're done. So eggs, and then I'll put in, you don't have to put the dollar sign in there for it. It does it for you. Eggs, comma, $1.25 with the remove button. And I did go over here on the overhead, but I did put in the displaying of the button a little space right here. In where it says var button equals single quote space. That's just for aesthetics. So that delete button would have a little, or that remove button would have a little space after the cost. If you don't do that, it's going to shove right against it. And again, it's just a real simple trick there to do that. Do that, and then we'll do bread. Bread's $2.50. That's what I'm normal. Somebody give me one more. My brain said. Another grocery item. Corn. Thank you. How much is corn? 35 cents. 75 cents.
Oh, which was that cheap?
75 cents. All right. So we have eggs, $1.25. Bread, $2.50. Corn, 75. Now again, you're after picturing this at the end. This isn't going to be removing items. It's going to be saying adding, add it to a shopping cart or whatever we want to call it. Right now, it's just removing item. We've added it. We're going down the aisle and we're removing. We got the bread in our basket, done. We got the corn in our basket, done. Removing item, corn, done. And what it's going to do on the final is, remember, put down here at the bottom. At the bottom, it'll put there, we'll move from the top list to the bottom list of what you've added already. Basically, is all it's going to do. But this one shows you how that works. Anyway, it's little bits and pieces at a time. I don't want to overwhelm you on it. So challenge on this one, though, is formatting, really. Start playing with formatting. I know somebody's already started doing that already, I can tell, on your shopping list. If you want to start throwing in pictures in there, getting to look nicer, your aesthetics of your page, that would be great. What do you want, a shopping cart behind there, or person pushing a shopping cart, whatever you want to do, I don't care. Also on the layout of the fields and the form and the button and the labels, you can play around with those as well, make it nicer if you want to. Jane, I wanted it to kind of match up a little bit here on the fields, but if you want to play a little bit on that as far as the way it looks, that'd be great. Questions on your version 3.0. So this week, version 3.0, you added an object class property, object property, with two properties, name and price, updated the function for add to shopping list, display shopping list, and delete shopping list is not changed at all, but how it's being called is, like on this example here, I'll do this one more time. Let's put 2 in here, eggs and milk. So right now, we've got 2 items, 0 and 1. So in the remove function array, if I click on this one, it's now item 1 out of the 2 arrays, 0 and 1. This is now item 0. Okay. And the reason I wanted to do it in the, or did it in the display, was the display is dynamically updated every time something's removed. And so the key to this one is when calling the delete shopping list, it gets the array number that it gets it from in the for loop. Even though I declared it before the for loop, I's in there before the for loop. Because you'll notice if the I is not declared till right there. Can it be done differently? It definitely can. Okay, that's just one way I did. As long as the outcome's the same for me, as long as the functionality is the same, I'm good with however you do it. As far as how you can name things differently if you want to. I would ask though, and you guys have been doing a good job on this, keeping the versioning numbers in there. That way, if you do make something different, like some of you change the variable name, something different what I use. That way, I kind of know what it is when I'm looking at it. That makes sense. Okay, so keep the comments in there as I've asked you to put them in there. But if you wanted to change the variable names, you can definitely do that. That's fine, because you might have a better think of a better name than what I thought of whenever I was creating it. Questions? Yeah. Yeah, good question. You can actually use, you know what I recommend, and I've been using this recently. Let me see if I can remember the name. Pasteboard. This is a really good website. Pasteboard.co. I'll write up on the board. It's a good website. What's cool about pasteboard.co is you can create a free account and then upload images. And once you're through uploading the images, it gives you a IMG link to that image that you can embed in any page. So yeah, use the pasteboard. That way you don't have to worry about uploading anywhere else. Make sense? So pasteboard.co definitely is what I'd recommend for uploading images. Good question. Any other questions? All right, well, we're done. If you have any other questions, come and see me. Otherwise, see you next week. Good to have everybody back. And be careful. It was snowing pretty good right before class. I don't know if it still is, but be careful out there. I'm sure they're doing the roads, but it's always a good idea to be safe. And I will put that pasteboard.co on our website too for